Hello everyone, and welcome to another the Labonyx Bltztorm the Labonyx Bltztorm um, sort of overview, and where this is part of editorial part of an editorial edition. This is Bostix news, and the Labonyx Bltztorm is part of a path slide and a cavalcade. This is another Storm the Bostix production. This overview and the overview here will be in around a sort of a collaborative works that had been presented presented at the where collaborative works had been presented at the excellence in pediatrics sort of remit in 2012. This was collaborative works between NHS Kidney Care, the Renal Patient Support Group, the RPSG, and where the collaborators were between had sort of come together to sort of highlight from a collaborative perspective on how using social media can help raise CKD, chronic kidney disease awareness, and where this collaborative works was sort of originally a sort of a sort of a collaboration at a time where the RPSG at the time was at just around 3 years, 3 years in sort of in its it was at 3 years, and where sort of at 3 years, and where collaborators had before this works was sort of formed a collaboration. There was an effort to highlight different aspects around this particular remit as well. So in this the Labonyx Bltztorm the Labonyx Bltztorm, there will be a sort of an overview in works that had been collaborative, sort of retrospectively in context of an overview. So the aims of this works was to highlight how using social media has helped provide insight and awareness surrounding CKD, or chronic kidney disease, through the RPSG, or the Renal Patient Support Group, and to provide insight into how the RPSG has successfully allowed has successfully encouraged the utilization of a sort of a social media platform, or a Facebook platform, a platform for communication and interaction of service users with chronic kidney disease, and general Facebook users as well, and to highlight how peer support programs that are currently that were that had been implemented in around different NHS and National Health Service trusts can and could improve programs could improve sort of aspects of care on programs utilizing social media as well, and to also highlight how the RPSG has had successfully implemented a research sort of initial sort of aspects around research using or implementing social media platforms as well. So those were some of the aims and objectives in around this in this collaborative works from 2012. So now a little bit around the background of this works. So the RPSG was initially introduced by founders, where there was one patient, one patient and one carer in 2009. So retrospectively, the initial intention of the RPSG founders was to help support fellow renal patients following routine clinical outpatient appointments at a particular NHS trust in the southwest region in the United Kingdom, where the NHS trust was known is known as the North Bristol NHS Trust. The RPSG founders knew knew that it would be a challenge, for example, to provide support or to propagate sort of support for patients and carers, for example, face to face in the clinical outpatient setting, owing to limited time. Having the internet as a resource, the RPSG founders had decided to explore and sought to identify an online platform, and Facebook, and the Facebook group was sort of conceptualized in October, in around October 2000 in around October 2009. And since the RPSG allowed the founders to interact with patients from, for example, the local NHS trust, a local NHS trust, using Facebook, using Facebook sort of attract appeal to patients, families, and friends with in line to chronic kidney disease, CKD, to gain more insight from across from different parts of the world, and where everyone had a basis to interact, ask questions, and post messages, and also sort of where early works highlighted the a sort of a basis in around where service users, carers, etc., had opportunity to share experiences, lived experiences, and also opportunities to participate in particular in around particular CKD related projects or research, etc. The group at that time in around 2012 had approached just over 900 members at various stages of CKD, and at the time had around 10 members to the admin team from the UK, Italy, and Australia, who had been involved who had been involved and had been involved and dedicated in seeing that the RPSG group, RPSG was moderated and facilitated. The RPSG in its from its underpinning basis offer online peer support globally, with members sharing lived experience as per mentioned. And the RPSG at that time, sort of retrospectively, had been involved, had a basis, in around aspects aligned to research, and where research have been had where research in contexts where, for example, different NHS trusts have had different NHS trusts had different research remits as well, and the RPSG was a space that sort of propagated and encouraged researchers as well as service users sort of getting to sort of use the RPSG, and the RPSG being a space for a sense of awareness, but also in context of aspects aligned to research as well. So in around this works that again that was presented in around 2012 at a conference aligned to the excellence in pediatrics in 2012. This research also this works also highlighted some aspects that were specifically on the RPSG, on the RPSG, and so the at the time the RPSG was a sort of had the face there was a face there was a there was a sort of a basic Facebook group, if you like, in 2012, and there was also a blog page as well, which were the two main which were pretty much the two main social media platforms that the RPSG team and sort of the RPSG team had sought to utilize. There was a basis in around this collaborative works to highlight what so for example what was on the RPSG. So number one, patients or service users sort of sharing lived experiences, real life experiences, and supporting each other. Number two, helpful links where there were sort of the latest links to websites, group pages, and guidances, guidelines and standards relating to kidney care. Number three, video links that may be of intrigue and aligned to kidney care practices. Number four, academic and research papers that may be of intrigue. There was number five, a sort of a research folder on the RPSG, which had sort of different projects within that research folder. Number six, sort of a section on the RPSG aligned to a voluntary patient activity opportunities. Number seven, a list of kidney patient associations or KPAs and related groups and pages. Number eight, sort of photographs of various aspects aligned to the RPSG, and number nine, event posters and posters and flyers, a flyers folder as well, and in around this works, there was a sort of an overview in context of how the RPSG gained some initial media gained some initial media attention as well. So number one, the RPSG team was involved in the World Kidney Day and Renal Health Awareness sort of a World Kidney Day and Renal Health Awareness sort of effort in Bristol City in the southwest region in the UK, and where there was where in context of media, there was a sort of a little bit around a basis around sort of an activity that took place aligned to World Kidney Day 2011 in a local newspaper. In at the same time there was and around World Kidney Day there was World Kidney Day in 2011 as well. There was some media attention aligned to where there was one of the founders, or one of those who were involved in the RPSG, a part of the RPSG team, had been on a local radio station, BBC Radio Bristol, highlighting some aspects around World Kidney Day and in around transplantation. And this was an interview on an interview on BBC Radio Bristol aligned to World Kidney Day 2011, and in World Kidney as part of World Kidney Day 2012, there was an event that took place, sort of a bowling and a coffee morning, whereby founders in around the RPSG had an opportunity to highlight some aspects of awareness aligned to World Kidney Day 2012 at two different sort of events that took place. One was a sort of a bowling event that took place, and highlighting around CKD awareness in as part of the general public, toward the general public. And there was a coffee morning that took place within the NHS Trust, which invited service users to talk about different aspects aligned to CKD, inviting service users to a coffee morning that had as part of World Kidney Day 2012. Now, in line to this, as part of this collaborative works, there was a sort of a surmised format of some aspects aligned to RPSG research and projects between 2011 and 12 that have been highlighted in sort of this collaborative works. So a little bit around this. So for World Kidney Day 2012, the RPSG hosted also a series of e-sessions on how using social media can raise CKD awareness in collaboration with NHS Kidney Care, and where the e-sessions invited service users and service providers to highlight different aspects around kidney disease that are aligned to kidney disease, which were actually also were actually hosted through an online sort of meeting platform but also where some of those meetings took place through Skype, through Skype communication as well. The RPSG also helped coordinate. The RPSG team also helped coordinate a small project with an organization known as Renal Patient View, or now known as Patient View, or PV, in around works aligned to electronic patient records, EPRs, and service evaluation. The RPSG also conducted various surveys to collect data which had been used to feedback had been used to highlight feedback and to enhance care, enhance care in an RPSG survey on what. So, for example, in a in an RPSG survey, excuse me, on what do you find most helpful about the RPSG? Data established sort of preliminary data is identifying that at least 36% of RPSG users have found that it was intriguing to know that they didn't feel alone in around chronic kidney disease. And this survey also the survey also highlighted that utilizing the RPSG, when utilizing the RPSG, 27% have found that communicating with patients and interacting had been advantageous. In an RPSG survey surrounding in around what's the worst thing about being a renal patient, data established that at least 31% 31% had informed that the RPSG informed the RPSG that they had been sort of afraid in around the psychological aspects around the disease, and in around a survey in around there was data also highlighted, that being a renal patient is something you had to entail for life, and where 23% contributed or polled in on this particular survey. Where the survey asked this particular question in around this. And A survey was also implemented to understand what processes or strategies people utilize to cope with CKD, and this survey highlighted that learning and laughing were actually the main ways that people with CKD sort of cope with their illness. In around 22 where or in around 22% had where 22% had identified with the poll survey in on this. The RPSG at the time sort of retrospectively was a young sort of young group, and it was encouraging to find through initial works that members which consisted of members of various ages, races, backgrounds around the world, or sort of globally. It was encouraging to find that the RPSG had been a sort of a positive way for people to cope. And since RPSG allows a sort of a platform for interaction and communication retrieving sort of detailed insight uh, retrieving detailed insight in around aspects of kidney care uh, for um, for for a great number of people had also was also been had been important to those on the RPSG. Another RPSG survey asked, for example, can social media and not just Facebook, for example, help raise CKD awareness? I identified that 89% of the members of the of RPSG members at the time found that social media can help raise CKD awareness, and in sort of subsequently the RPSG it was actually subsequently the RPSG team then initiated a blog spot where one of the lead research facilitators, where one of the lead research facilitators also sought to implement sort of sort of sort of sort of discussions and where the Skype and where the Skype sort of e sessions had been sort of shared as well, and the original works from 2012 around the different sort of projects have been identified are documented sort of graphically on the RPSG sort of YouTube page. There is an overview around this works. There is an overview around this work. So anyone listening on this, feel free to check out the works around the RPSG around this particular works and in around how using social media can help raise CKD awareness, and there is there is a there are sort of webinars webinars and webinars and other uh, uh, other videos and information through the RPSG that can be identified, and one of the other aspects around this works was also asked a initial question sort of question as well about what makes the RPSG sort of a success a success. So number one, Facebook allows a good general platform for people to interact. Number two, 10 or 11 members to the admin admin team who all bring a specific expertise, allowing moderating in around the RPSG. The RPSG in the initial initial phases was had been an open group. The understanding is that the RPSG is now a closed group wherein those who are in the group within the group are the only ones who for example see information in around what's sort of posted within the group, and so the RPSG also has uh, the RPSG and Facebook and sort of Facebook generally, for example, appeals to all audiences. The RPSG raises CKD issues and awareness at all stages, and the RPSG organizes or is involved in various sort of research and collaborations to collect sort of data in around aspects that are important to service users to service users. The RPSG had sort of retrospectively, as per mentioned, hosted Skype e-sessions. The RPSG organizes sort of various activities by creating events and sort of advertising sort of in around different events through the social media through the social media platform. The RPSG blog had been formed or initiated on the basis for non-Facebook users, and also had various had very had also sort of journaled sort of up to date information. The RPSG service users, RPSG and your service users again have the opportunity to share real experiences, lived experiences, sort of in real time from all around the world, and opportunities to learn about different aspects around the disease, and from different different etiologies, and from various sort of various parts various parts of the world. The RPSG encourages patients to service users to interact with local kidney patient associations, or KPAs, to find out to find out how they can be sort of more proactive in aspects of care for sort of peers and others, and the RPSG also does the RPSG sort of retrospectively collaborated to ensure there are works that link between primary care and secondary care, thus where care for service users is better. In around at the time when this works was presented retrospectively, there was sort of there was some works in around sort of perspective sort of thing, sort of works that align to sort of different activities. So for example, there was a proposed there was a there was documented a picnic, a sort of picnic or a fun day, a sponsored walk, an organ. There was some works in around organ donation, an organ donation campaign, or in around transplantation, following the launch of the National Kidney Federation (NKF) Black and Minority Ethnic Groups Manifesto from 2012, and there was works that was was linked to a health record access initiative as well, and there was also there was some works in that there was some overview in around sort of where colleagues in the RPSG had sought to collaborate where they could where the team could where the team could support other colleagues to identify with other particularly important topics and subject focuses around kidney care by by collating data sort of through qualitative and quantitative research modalities. So in around the sort of conclusions around this sort of work sort of from a sort of a historical from a historical perspective. So as a non-funded organization at 3 years, and this was at 3 years in 2012, the RPSG had allowed the sort of an admin and research team to raise CKD awareness and prevention prevention of CKD using social media using social media, and this had been achieved through sort of a Facebook platform, a Facebook a sort of social media platform, a blog page, and also through Skype e-sessions where topics are pulled together and hosted by members of the RPSG. The RPSG has successfully allowed a platform for interaction and communication, also gaining insight from hard to reach populations and distributing or disseminating information in around CKD to for example general general social media platform general social media users and where peer support programs within NHS Trust, the NHS Trust for CKD and stage renal disease patients have been piloted and fully implemented. They should also consider implementing a social media platform to allow shared caring and learning. And finally, research have been an important essence in around the RPSG, and the RPSG have perhaps been the only renal Facebook group that sought to collect research data and publish information for service users. The RPSG encourage researchers to get involved in for collaborations. So again, this works is accessible through the RPSG and again, this works was a collaborative in around how using social media can help raise CKD awareness, and this was works in around the RPSG at 3 years. The works was presented in collaboration between the RPSG, NHS Kidney Care, and in around a remit around the excellence in pediatrics in 2012. So that draws the Labonyx Bltztorm overview to a close. There will be some resources around this in the descriptive on social media. So so anyone who's listening in on this are welcome to check out some of the resources aligned to this works. This has been part of the editorial edition, part of a Pathline and Cavalcade, and this has been a Bostix news and another Storm of Bostix production. Thank you.